Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Islanders. We hope you enjoy this edition. Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney. For probably 1,000 years, we have taken a look at how people have learned skills, have learned and become educated. Apprenticeship training, although not really called apprenticeship training 2,000 years ago, is a model in which individuals learn by applied learning. They receive some background, some information from an individual or in a classroom setting, but then they get to do the real job on site. Apprenticeship training was formalized in 1937 in the United States, and since that time, organized labor has spent a lot of time and money and effort and research into developing programs in the building trades and non-building trades as an effective way of teaching people the skills that are necessary to be very good at their job, to build a future for an individual, to build the economy for the country. Next week is National Apprenticeship Week, and this is an ideal opportunity to introduce you to two individuals who have made a significant difference in the state and a significant difference in their own lives and the lives of others because of apprenticeship training. I'm very pleased to have joining us today two individuals who have made a significant difference in apprenticeship training in this state for both individuals, for organized labor, and for the community. I'd like to welcome Andrew Cortés, who is the Executive Director of Building Futures, and Orlando Correa, who is a journeyman iron worker for Local 37 here in Rhode Island. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew, you've been involved in apprenticeship for as long as I've known you. You're well respected for not just the knowledge that you have, but the impact that you've had on a whole host of individuals through Building Futures. I think it's a wonderful program. Can you describe it?
Well, sure. I mean, in all honesty, I'm basing it off of my own experience as an individual. I was a 17-year-old who needed a career path, and apprenticeship was my path forward. And it lifted me out of poverty, and it helped me create a family for myself and created a genuine pathway to the middle class. So when starting Building Futures, that was the thought in my mind. Why aren't we expanding these opportunities to the low-income, disenfranchised communities who need good opportunities for the original four-year degree? I mean, why go into student debt when you can earn and learn at the same time and gain a nationally portable credential within a construction occupation? So we started Building Futures in 2007 with that premise in mind, and we've been operating a high-quality pre-apprenticeship program to feed the high-quality registered apprenticeship programs of our labor movement. So we've been doing that since 2007. We extended all the way up into 2014, but we really started to ask ourselves the question, if this is so successful for construction, why aren't other sectors utilizing the model? And that's when we launched the Apprenticeship Rhode Island initiative. And what that's doing is expanding this model of highly skilled workforce training outside of the construction industry. Believe it or not, we set out to build 12 non-construction apprenticeship programs. We're currently at 55. 55 occupations now have a pathway to become competent through apprenticeship, and 860 people are employed. So with Building Futures, we have 300 low-income individuals who have moved into 12 different union apprenticeship programs. And what I'm really proud of, over a third of them have already graduated on the other side and become journey workers, such as Orlando.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think, having been a high school teacher for more than 20 years, we spend a lot of time telling people that, college is the way to go. And in reality, understanding student loan debt, understanding the economy, I think we shortchange individuals and we shortchange ourselves when we don't give encouragement for people to get involved in both skilled building trades and non-trades apprenticeship. I think that it provides such a background, and you and I talked before the show, if we were to put a side-by-side match of an individual who went to college or university because they really didn't know what they wanted to do, as opposed to an individual who goes through the rigorous interview process to get into a skilled trades apprenticeship, and take a look at side-by-side matches of what happens at the end of 5 years.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because the data bears that out. So there is a great study done by Mathematica Policy Research in 2012, which compared the lifetime career earnings of somebody who graduated through apprenticeship and a similar participant who did not go through apprenticeship. $300,000 difference in a lifetime career earnings, $50,000 net social benefit to society. I mean, the payback is incredible for one public dollar invested. So it's a smart system, and I think we all know through our own experience, we learn by doing. It's just the nature of being human.
Yep.
So what apprenticeship does is it structures that learning process and allows a fair shake for the worker. So it's a bargain between an employer and a worker. It says, listen, if you do these processes on the job, demonstrate your competency, supplement that with related instruction, that equals raise, and you advance. You rinse and repeat until you're completely occupationally proficient, and nobody can take that away from you. It's a great path.
Oh, I think it is. I mean, you know, like I say, in Orlando, I mean, you are a poster child for this program in so many ways. And I must admit, you just ran a campaign as a councilman in Providence,
Yes.
and I think you did in organized labor with you, did a wonderful job. But I think you are, for many people who have only recently come to know you, a true poster child of somebody who has gone through an apprenticeship training program, the difference it has made in your life and the life of your family, the difference that you can bring about in the community because you understand the value of it. Tell me a little bit about your experience in apprenticeship as an iron worker.
Well, clearly before entering Building Futures, I was a jack of all trades but master of none. And by that being said, I would work with a company for about 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, get laid off, have to start all over again from the bottom of the pole, work my way up the ladder, get the rate that I thought I needed and was enough to sustain my family. And during one of those times, I was laid off and I heard about Building Futures. And it was a Sunday. And luckily for me, orientation was on a Monday. And my friend said, Orlando, whatever you do, show up 20 minutes early. So I showed up 20 minutes early, and I sat in the parking lot, and people were just running into the store. And somebody said, Orlando, make sure you go in, you know, make sure you get a seat. So when I sat in there, into the first day I met Andrew Cortés, the whole room was filled. And exactly at 9 o'clock, Mr. Cortés told one of his assistants, Gomar, to close the door. And by close the door, he locked the door from the outside. People couldn't come in no more. As soon as the orientation started, people were still coming towards the door, and they were knocking, trying to get in desperately. And some folks were actually going through the windows and knocking in the windows, trying to get into the program. And I knew I was in the right place. And I heard the speech that Mr. Cortés and his staff gave us. And the whole time I was expecting them to ask for money. I thought it was gonna be like a pyramid scheme, right? And never once did they ask for money. It was pretty much you come in, you put as much as you can into this, and you receive what you put into it. And I did the program. I got into the ironworkers. As a second-year apprentice, I was able to purchase my first home. I purchased my home with my family. Now I'm a journeyman. Now I'm running work. I went from barely making $44,000 a year to being in the middle class. And because of this program, it's changed everything about me. It's changed a lot of my mannerisms, the way I carry myself, the way I speak. I have a lot to owe to an apprenticeship program and Building Futures and the trades.
Well, I know I'm proud to say that you are a graduate of Leadership for a Future program
Yes.
at the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. I know Andrew is well aware of it. And I think that, you know, the Institute and organized labor and Building Futures would all stand behind and say, you know, we are so lucky that you took that step forward. And it's interesting, Andrew, that you said, or that Orlando said, you locked the door, because there's a whole piece in apprenticeship that says you're there to work,
That's right.
done right, done once, and you will be there on the job. And oftentimes during apprenticeship, people are told very clearly, you don't get to be late for the job. And if you can't be early and on time for these programs, this is not the right fit for you. Andrew, tell me about some of the basics of when you do this presentation.
Well, it's an orientation, and the idea there is to let people know right up front, this industry isn't for everybody. When there's a match, it's a great path. But when there's not, there's no point in trying. Somebody has to be mentally and physically prepared. So we can help somebody develop their talent. But they have to come to the door talented and hungry and ready to take advantage of that opportunity. So what they do is they get a social service assessment, educational testing, a variety of different hoops that people jump through. So we don't have to tell 200 people you weren't selected. They just don't move forward because they miss a step. We have a hands-on assessment at the end before they go into a 5-week intensive hands-on training program, and that allows people to experiment hands-on with the different trades that they may want to enter as a career. So it's a great program. We're very proud of it, and I'm very proud of the fact that we're replicating this outside at this point. In fact, I know there's not time to discuss all of these programs today, but people are welcome to join us at Building Futures, November 15th at 4 p.m. We're going to be co-hosting an event with Governor Raimondo. It's going to be a celebration of all the great work that's happened in apprenticeship here in Rhode Island.
You know, it's interesting. I got an email the other day and an invitation to attend, and it brought back so many great, wonderful, fond memories of all of the people whose lives have been impacted in a positive way by becoming a member or fortunate enough to become a member of an apprenticeship training program. I can't thank you enough for the work that you've done in founding Building Futures, in moving it forward. You've brought Building Futures such a long way in such a short time and influenced the lives of Orlando and hundreds of others in so many ways. Traditionally, the building trades were that's where it started. I think you've moved, and
That's right.
Building Futures even beyond that.
Well, everybody in every sector has a lot to learn from organized labor, and one of the things we do exceptionally well is train our workforce. We invest in our talent pool because we understand those are our members. And so companies who are non-union can still take that same attitude in terms of creating a bargain with their workers around their learning, and the results pay off. So
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it.
I wouldn't miss this for the world, Orlando.
No.
I think it's most appropriate that we give you the closing comments on the value of apprenticeship.
Well, all I can say is Building Futures is great for the fact that we have 300 of my alumni that are in the field right now. There's 120?
101.
102 journeymen. So that means Andrew Cortés, the program, the state, because now it's recognized by the state, has pretty much been a curse breaker. You've placed people in middle-class jobs with zero college debt, just going up to work and making a living. It's an outstanding program. As a journeyman, I love my apprenticeship for the fact that I worked hand in hand with men and women that had 20, 30 years of experience. And they taught me in that one day the tricks of the trade that took them years to learn. So it's the best form to get a trade, because the folks that you're working with are your brothers and sisters. They don't want to see you, do bad, because they want the trade to keep going forward. So apprenticeship is an amazing program.
It's all a model built on success. Orlando, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming. We could spend 3 more shows talking about this.
And we probably should at some point.
Well,
it's that exciting.
Consider that an open invitation to come back for both of you.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank you for joining us in this edition of Labor Vision. As the program closes, you're going to see an invitation to an event on November the 15th.
Yes, sir.
And I would encourage you to take a look at apprenticeship in Rhode Island, both union and non-union. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm your host, Bob Delaney. 10 years ago at the Institute for Labor Studies and Research, there was a request made that the Institute begin a program to prepare individuals to become teacher assistants in the classroom. A lot has happened in that last 10 years. We went from 2 classes in a year with about 10 students in each class, and now we're operating anywhere between 8 and 10 classes a year with between 12 and 15 students. That increase has happened not just because of demand, but because of the work of the individuals at the Institute who are committed to providing opportunities to individuals in the community to enter into the classroom, experience the world of being a TA. And what we're hoping for is that maybe even in the future, some of those TAs will become teachers. Joining me in this program tonight are the 3 individuals that make that program happen at the Institute. The labor liaison at the Institute is Erica Hammond. Erica, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Sabine Adrian is the Director of Adult Literacy Programs at the Institute. And she has been involved for a variety of years in adult education, even before coming to the Institute. She has a solid background in English language learners, and we're really looking forward to having that conversation with her tonight, bringing her experience into how we blend English language learners into a teacher assistant training program. And last but not least is Fatima Martin. Fatima is the case manager for the program. She's been working diligently with school districts, with individuals, to ensure that the program meets the standards for the Rhode Island Department of Education, but as well that we grow the program with school districts and give individuals the opportunity to get into the classroom for extended period of time. So ladies, thank you for joining. Thank you most of all for making the program as good as it is, because I know how much work it is.
Thank you.
I think we talked before the program, and we talked about how the program was really a request by a union to start a teacher assistant training program that would allow some bus monitors to transfer from being a bus monitor to a teacher assistant in the classroom. So Erica, let me start with you.
Mm-hmm.
You manage the people who call into the Institute looking to get into the program. Tell me a little bit about it.
So I want to start by saying we definitely don't have a single day in the office that we don't get at least 1 or 2 phone calls about the teacher assistant program. So a lot of people are hearing about the program. We're not just getting individuals who are current, they're not just looking to be TAs, but we're getting a lot of current TAs that are now looking to get, they have been working as a TA for a number of years, some almost 20 years, and are now being told that they need the certification because in the past things were different. And so now we're getting an influx of those students. We are also getting a lot of individuals who are applying for jobs with the school district and are getting this just to cover themselves, to make sure that they have this certificate. And we're getting a lot of individuals who heard about it through people who have taken the course. And it seems like it's getting more and more popular, and more people are coming to the Institute for this, because I know we're one of few in the state that offer this program.
Yeah, and there's no doubt, I know just from the work that we've done in the last 10 years, this class has grown exponentially in the last 2 in particular. So when individuals call in, is there a standard that's required for them to meet in English and math in order to get into the program?
Yes. So there's a few different requirements for getting into the program, one of which is the pretest requirement and that we offer, and it's the CASA Scholes pretest that we offer. And there's a certain level that students need to test on that, just so we have a baseline of, we make sure that the students that are getting into the program are at this baseline, have made it or exceeded this baseline, to make sure that they will succeed when they get to their final requirements of the class. And that is the paraprofessional assessment, which I'll get into in a little bit. But another basic main requirement for the class is a high school diploma or GED equivalent. And if students have that high school diploma or GED certificate, the components of the course are slightly different. So those students, the requirement is 24 hours of classroom instruction and 3 hours shadow. And also at the end of the course, they'll have to take the paraprofessional assessment. That is a RIDE requirement, and RIDE has made it a requirement so that students who come in with an associate's degree or higher are exempt from having to take that paraprofessional assessment.
That's because they're assuming that these students are performing at a level in English and math,
right,
because they have completed the associate's degree or beyond.
Right. So when I say there's a pretest requirement, it's a pretest component so we can see what students know coming in and where they need to be to excel as they leave this program.
And I know that the Institute offers supportive programs in English and math for those students who don't meet the cutoff score, that
right,
those individuals can get individualized help or enroll in another class to be able to bring the levels of English and math up so they can successfully pass the parapro,
right,
which, as you say, is a state requirement for teacher assistants.
Right. And some of those components that students can use as resources, I know that both Fatima and Sabine have helped put together a kind of things to help you pass these assessments, and also a list of the learning lounges that the state offers for free, but I'll let you guys get into a little bit more detail about that. As well as, Fatima will touch on this, but some of her students who have even offered to help tutor students for free because they are coming in with degrees that you'll hear about soon.
So originally, when the program started, one of the interesting things was that we had a lot of ladies who were coming in who were mothers who volunteered in the school or had spent time at home when their children were in preschool and daycare. And then when their children went to school, they were volunteering in the school, and eventually they found that their role in volunteering as their children got older kind of diminished, and they wanted to find a way to stay connected to the school. So many of them came in, became certified as a teacher assistant, some of them having a bachelor's degree and beyond prior to having children.
Right.
So it was kind of an interesting transition, because I think we've transitioned from that particular program where adults are calling in looking for certification, and then we decided, Sabine, if I'm not mistaken, we decided to integrate that program into our English language learning programs. Can you tell me about that?
Right, so in the past we're in our second year of creating a pathway for our advanced English language learners from our community English classes to participate in the teacher assistant program, and those individuals also have to have the same levels in English and math to be able to enter the program, but they do get additional supports, which Fatima can talk more about, but there's an additional day of class for those students, those particular students, to get the language reinforcement and also support with the process for applying for jobs and finding work. So Fatima teaches the components of that of the program, and why don't you tell what you do with those students?
Yeah, so it's like the resource. It's another resource for those students. Just like those mothers who were home or and decided to go back into the school by becoming TAs and stuff. We're also seeing that a lot of these English language learners are suddenly finding that they can too find a place where they can go and grow, and so the pathways to teacher assistant has become also another venue for this population. So there's so much to talk about the program. So the same thing, the same criteria fits for them, that they're eligible the same way. They do have an extra day, 12 hours a week, where they will get the ESL, or the English language support. Also, we do a lot of skills discussions about their skills and their experiences, and transferable skills. Many of them come in with degrees. Most of them, in fact, have already degrees from their country, and so we discuss a lot of those skills that can be transferred or that are transferable now to this new path that they're taking.
So there are actually two groups within the Pathways program. There are those individuals who are ELL students who come in and may not have a degree but are interested in enrolling in the teacher assistant training program. They come in, they go through the assessment, and they can continue that pathway. But the second group of students are those individuals who come into the program and they may have an associate, a bachelor's, or beyond.
Yeah.
We have those degrees evaluated, but they get the same supportive services. And many of those people may be taking that job while they're determining what the next step is in their career, which could be teaching, it may not, but it sounds to me like many of those individuals may have an academic background that's advantageous in the classroom to both the students and the teachers they're working with.
Absolutely, and those are, I talked about the transferable skills. Yes, they come in with all kinds of degrees, degrees in education, in science, and math, and physics. This is just to name a few. And yes, so those are, and also languages. Let's not forget languages. They are also multicultural and multilingual individuals, so they are already bringing in a lot to the classroom. So yeah, and some of them will find that there's a path somewhere in there for them that want to return to the classroom, want to teach again. And so this is something that we hope to somehow work something out in the future where they can have that opportunity.
Something else that's interesting, and we will probably touch upon it a bit more in the second segment of this series on the Teacher Assistant Training Program at the Institute, is a community-based organization who may contact the Institute, like Cranston Community Action, who have a group of individuals that come in as a cohort or a classroom to the Institute, and our instructors will run them through an entire program. Do you want to speak briefly about that before we run out of time?
This is the CCAP.
Sure, yeah, I can
Yeah.
talk about the partnership that we have with CCAP that does work with 18 to 24-year-olds who have barriers to employment. So we do run classes with youth through that partnership, and that is a separate class run on a different schedule to get newly graduated high school students certified as TAs.
Sounds interesting. I think that there is so much more to talk about, and we will talk about it in part 2 of this program. And we're really looking forward to having a discussion to inform the general public about the Teacher Assistant Training Program at the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. There is a program that's enrolling now, ladies, I think for January.
Yes.
And so at the end of this program, Paul will post the telephone number and the enrollment date. We hope you enjoyed this segment. We hope you'll join us in part 2. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.